What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is Sucker Punch. This film was first requested to me by Sean on my It Follows review that I released back on the 4th of July. I actually remember going to see this movie in theaters back in 2011 and having a vigorous debate over it with my friend who I usually disagree with when it comes to movies. Zack Snyder seems to make very divisive movies, and Sucker Punch is really no exception. But anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's get into my review of Sucker Punch. Okay, so Sucker Punch is a 2011 fantasy action film that was directed and co-written by Zack Snyder and takes place primarily in a mental institution sometime in the 1950s. The film follows main protagonist Baby Doll, a 20-year-old woman who is institutionalized after her wicked stepfather blames her for the death of her younger sister. Once Baby Doll arrives at the medical institution or prison of sorts, she befriends 4 other female patients while at the same time becoming the institution's best erotic dancer, at least in her imagination anyway. Baby Doll begins to view this medical facility as a brothel, and hence she becomes the main attraction for outsiders with her erotic dancing. The fantasy or action aspects of this film come in when Baby Doll begins to dance and she slides into her fantasy world where she completes crazy tasks like slaying a dragon that are meant to mirror her goals in real life, all of which relate to she and her friends escaping from this brothel, medical, prison place. The rest of the movie is spent with Baby Doll and her 4 friends plotting their escape and having to deal with Oscar Isaac's character, Blue Jones, the crazy and corrupt head of this mental institution. Okay, so like I said before, Zack Snyder usually creates very divisive or polarizing films, and this film definitely seems to land in that category as well. I'm pretty sure that I wasn't a fan of this movie when I saw it back in 2011, and sadly I wasn't a fan of it when I watched it again last night. There are some things to like here for sure. I think the action sequences for the most part are absolutely amazing and stunning to watch visually because Zack Snyder has never had a problem with action sequences. He usually hits those out of the park with movies like Batman v Superman and 300 and so on. I also think the movie is very well shot and well lit. There are a lot of scenes where the lighting and cinematography very clearly define and capture the feeling of darkness and helplessness that the characters are feeling. It really does help you put yourself into these characters' shoes and allows you to try to feel what they're feeling. They definitely implemented some dark and dramatic lighting techniques that sort of resemble chiaroscuro lighting that I think really did add some extra drama to these scenes. There are a handful of moments in this movie that felt a lot like Sin City to me, I'll just say that. I also like the acting in this movie for the most part. I felt like all 5 members of Baby Doll's fantasy crew were each really good in their respective role. I also felt that Oscar Isaac was fantastic in the role of Blue Jones. He was incredibly menacing and crazy and just pure evil, and he did a really good job of being so intimidating because every time he was on screen I felt pretty uneasy. Baby Doll, played by Emily Browning, was pretty good in this movie too. There are definitely some moments where I feel like her character was sort of overacted and it sort of sucks the immersion element out of that scene for you, but I thought overall she did a pretty good job. She slides in and out of her fantasy world pretty smoothly, and ultimately Baby Doll becomes a very capable yet sympathetic protagonist. The other 4 women in this movie are really good in their respective roles as well. Abbie Cornish plays Sweet Pea, the strong-minded and opinionated original leader of the group. Jena Malone plays Rocket, the sweet and caring member who looks out for everyone's best interests and happiness. Vanessa Hudgens plays Blondie, the sly and secretive member of the group, and Chung plays Amber, the somewhat shy and more reserved member of the group. Each of these 4 actresses do a pretty good job in their respective roles, and they each brought something a little bit different to the story. Okay, so my first big problem with this movie is with the story itself, because it makes very little sense to me. This movie is supposed to be a little crazy and ridiculous, I get that, but the amount you have to suspend your disbelief to enjoy it is just too high. There's one thing after another that just makes very little sense at all, and after a while it just feels like you're playing a bad video game. I understand this story is being told from Baby Doll's perspective, and she is fantasizing a lot of these elements, but it just gets too crazy after a while. One minute they're fighting giant samurai swordsmen, and then the next they're fighting advanced futuristic Nazi zombies and dragons. I mean, this is cool to watch on screen because the action sequences and CGI are nicely done for the most part, but the story itself has almost no substance to it whatsoever. There's not very much character progression at all, and the key characters themselves progress very little by the end of the film. One of the problems with the confusing elements of this story are that nothing is ever explained ever. Characters know and figure out things just out of thin air, and you're supposed to just go along with it and act like that's totally plausible. In my opinion, having a film that mostly revolves around elements of someone's imagination does not substitute a story that is believable and at least has some basis in reality. I mean, the three characters are named Baby Doll, Sweet Pea, and Rocket, so that should give you an idea as to what kind of story this is. Also, I did say that the action sequences are for the most part really well done and exciting, while there's some points where they're pretty cheesy too. Some of the characters will do things that just look kind of silly and ridiculous, and I was just sitting there like, okay, this is getting a little too off the wall crazy. I like to think we all have pretty vivid imaginations, but I don't think I've ever envisioned myself fighting Nazi zombies with advanced technical warfare. I mean, have you? If so, kudos to you for having such a lively imagination, because I've never personally heard of such a thing. Like I said, you have to suspend your disbelief so incredibly high for you to enjoy this film, because when you sit back and think about how the story is progressing, there's very little consistency to it. The fantasies Baby Doll has are supposed to mirror her reality, but it never really felt like they did. The fantasies felt pretty random and in no way like they actually paralleled her actual reality. I also wasn't a fan of the ending at all. I'll just say this is not a happy ending, and like the rest of the story, it doesn't make very much sense either. The third act as a whole was pretty anticlimactic, and the ending was pretty meh. I'd be willing to bet that most people will be fairly disappointed with how this story resolves itself. I also thought the dialogue was pretty stale in many cases, and the music felt overdone. There are many instances where the characters will say things to each other that felt pretty cheesy and silly, and I found myself laughing at times, not in a good way either. As for the music, anytime Baby Doll slides into her fantasy world, we get this rock music that starts playing and then the team starts murdering zombies or robots or whatever else. The music doesn't always supplement the action on screen very well in my opinion, and it just felt like the film was trying to be too edgy and cool. Okay, so overall I was still pretty disappointed with this film upon my second watch. I thought it had some great action sequences, good acting, and good cinematography and lighting. Sadly, I also felt that the story made little to no sense, the action sequences felt cheesy in some moments, the dialogue was pretty stale, and the third act and ending were pretty anticlimactic. I'm gonna give this movie a 6 out of 10 and recommend passing on this one unless you're looking for some quality action sequences and don't care about the story at all. So did you guys see Sucker Punch yet? What did you think of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if not, let me know whether you'd be interested in watching this movie or not. I know I took a tough stance on this one, but it's my honest opinion, so feel free to disagree with me in the comments if you wish. And as always, if you like this video, click that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for much more content like this. Thanks again to Sean for the request, whose channel link you can find in the description below. That's all for now. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.